We spent multiple years basically saying privacy is useless and meme coins are better than privacy, right? Like, so it's like there is this like feel good element to the old people in crypto, like
not a dividend.
It's a tale of two clans.
Now your losses are on someone else's balance sheet.
Generally speaking, airdrops are kind of pointless anyways.
Unnamed trading firms who are very involved.
Pollic.eth is the ultimate Ponzi.
DeFi protocols are the antidote to this problem.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chopping Block. Every couple of weeks, the four of us get together and give the industry insider's perspective on the crypto topics of the day. So quick intros. First, we got Tom, the DeFi maven and master of memes.
Hello, everyone.
Next, we got Robert, the crypto connoisseur and czar of Superstate.
Good evening.
Joining us today, we've got a special guest, the ghost of Tarun, the Giga Brain and Grand Poobah at Gauntlet.
He'll be here at some point.
Oh, he'll arrive at some point. I have no doubt. Tarun is perpetually on time. And I am Haseeb, the head hype man at Dragonfly. We are early stage investors in crypto, but I want to caveat that nothing we say here is investment advice, legal advice, or even life advice. Please see choppingblock.xyz for more disclosures. So it is the week after Token 2049. There's been a lot of craziness in the news and a lot of price action going on. But the big news this week has been around Polymarket, which, full disclosure, all of us are investors in. So Polymarket raised $2 billion at a $9 billion valuation, one of the largest fundraisers in crypto history, and as well, one of the fastest valuation run-ups that we've seen in crypto history, because it was just very recently in August, they announced their $1.2 billion valuation round led by Founders Fund. Now, this round, notably beyond just the dollar amount, it was led by ICE. Now, this is not immigration ICE. This is ICE, the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange. No relation to immigration. So it's the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, of course, one of the largest exchanges in the world. And the other part of the story that's so notable is that this officially makes Shane the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. Woo, so Shane, I believe he's 26? 26, right? 26? 27.
I think 27.
So Shane, 27 years old. He started the company in 2020. I remember the seed round of Polymarket. What was he? He was like 22 in the seed round.
Yeah.
He was like just 22. A little baby. He had almost no experience. He dropped out of NYU, and he was just like, I read this paper about prediction market. We should make one. And he went from very, very humble beginnings, raising just a few $1 million in the seed round. Robert, I believe you were an angel investor in the seed, or
no? That's incorrect. There was actually circulating on Twitter. There was these like screenshots of like early like Crunchbase like who invested when type things. So Robot Ventures invested in the seed round in 2020, but it was wrongly attributed to myself as an angel and Tarun as an angel, even though it was our firm that invested at the time.
Got it. Okay, so Robot is an investor from the seed round. We invested up at the which round was it? I think like the 2024 round, very early 2024 round.
Yeah.
Before
was that like 100 million valuation?
It was a little bit over 100 million, over 100 million valuation. And the funny thing, so that we have a lot of history with Shane. Funny note, we were actually the first term sheet that Shane ever received. So this is one of the really dagger in the heart like memories that we have is so Shane was in the seed round. He was striking out with everybody because Shane at that time,
he didn't strike out with Robot Ventures.
Shane, he didn't strike out with Robot Ventures. That is true. So Shane was striking out with almost everybody, and Shane at that time was totally unpolished. He was kind of just a wild man. I remember he was taking a lot of these deal meetings in just like a tank top. Like he was just
usually like in a couch on like a roof deck, and like he was.
That's right. That's right.
Chilling,
I remember. It was he's just a wild man, and at that time I think he just had he had no polish compared to what he has today, and he pitched us, and we were just like, okay, this guy's kind of insane, but he's just an animal. He just has an energy level and a seeming just like sharpness that is extremely rare in founders, and so we gave him his first term sheet, and I can't remember the price. It must have been at like 8 million or 9 million or something. It was like, okay,
you lowballed him.
Kind of crazy. We were, to be clear, we were the only term sheet that he got. He struck out with everybody else. And eventually Polychain came in. So he was very grateful because he was like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys believe in me. Thank you so much. Because he was also dead broke at that time. So that was the other thing. He was like taking pitch meetings with absolutely nothing to his name. And Polychain ended up coming in, I think it was at like 15 or 16 million.
I think it was like a
And-
12 pre.
Was it a 12?
It was 12 pre, so it was like
Oh,
15,
it was 16
post.
post.
Yeah.
16 post. Yeah, it was 16 post. And I remember this was like so early. It was like 2020. It was our first fund. We had almost no money either. And we were just like, oh my God, we were never going to double the valuation. It's crazy. And we just told Shane, like, look, congratulations. We love you, but we just we can't pay 16 for a prediction market. Prediction markets are not even a real thing. And Shane was just such a grinder. He prediction market. It's important to understand. In 2020, we invested in Augur super early, right? And we were longtime believers in prediction markets. And Augur was just, it was the first prediction market. 2017, it was Augur and Gnosis, and both of them were just pieces of shit. They were awful products. Nobody used them. There was no demand. There was no volume. There was nothing. It was all just, we believe, we want this to be true, but no one's using any of these things right now. And Shane just kept grinding. There was a little bit of volume in the 2020 election. There's a little bit of volume in the World Cup, but other than that, it was just a ghost town. And Shane just kept building. And if you remember in 2022, CFTC came after them and there was a settlement. They had to pay a fine of a couple $1 million, leave the US market. And Shane was constantly doing this on just a shoestring budget. He had almost no money. Guy was dead broke. And eventually, finally around 23, 24, things started working. And the UX got good enough and the on-ramps got good enough. And, they were using Polygon, and Polygon finally had the users and the throughput. And eventually, 2024 election, things started really growing rapidly. And we were, I think we looked at the deal again, very beginning of 24, where the volumes just started to ramp. And we ended up putting in a big check. And we're now one of the biggest investors on the cap table because we invested along the way in that round. There was another subsequent round, and then the Founders Fund round. And it's just been incredible to see how Shane as a founder has just willed this category into existence. Prediction markets are in the Ethereum white paper. Everybody in crypto has wanted prediction markets to work for a very, very long time. Shane was the one who made it work just out of sheer determination. And now today, it's just an incredible testament to the company and what he's built.
Well, if we're telling Shane stories like everyone on crypto Twitter is, and sheer determination, Polymarket was the third company of Shane's that I looked at.
Really? Wait, what?
Oh,
Yeah,
he's doing
I
some
not know this.
Cosmos thing or something.
So I met Shane in 2017 because he posted some ridiculous product to Product Hunt, and I was in the comments hey man, you should rethink this. What this is not the right product. What do you I don't know. What's your plan here? That was the first at bat. The second one, he
Big brother Robert.
Yeah, I was I was starting to build a DeFi too. I was big brother Robert. I was hey, let's rethink what you're doing here. He came and pitched me a year or two later, right? And he's oh, I'm gonna build this staking product on Cosmos and because there was very few crypto assets with staking or yield at that point. Atom was one of them. And so he was I'm starting a delegated staking system. And there was a few things like this at the time. And I was interesting, don't really know if you're the right guy to do that versus how much competition there is. And if you look back, there wasn't even that much competition. It didn't really go anywhere. And then, when he came to me with Polymarket, I was well, prediction markets, I mean, this is a tested category. Nothing is working. There's been a few people trying it. I've been pitched a few times on prediction markets in the last couple months. I'm but man, this guy has grit. So I was okay. Third time I see Shane, I'm I have to write a check. So, I mean, that guy's got tenacity. I love it.
He has an incredible amount of tenacity. So there's obviously been a lot of excitement around what this means with respect to the integration between ICE and their properties and Polymarket. And Shane was also on Twitter teasing a potential Polymarket token. So I think his tweet was something BTC, ETH, BNB, Sol, Poly, ? And then a emoji. And so there's a lot of there's a lot of energy now around, oh, Polymarket is going to be the crypto native one, and the between Polymarket and Kalshi, and their prospects for a token. Not totally clear what the token is going to represent and how it's going to work, because of course they've got the CFTC license. they're planning to go to market and reopen in the US. And presumably that's going to be in concert in some way with, ICE or New York Stock Exchange, given the strategic investment that ICE has made into Polymarket. So TBD, watch this space. We'll be talking about it. The other story relevant to prediction markets is these new, what are called the KOL wars between Kalshi and Polymarket. So KOL is the term in crypto for an influencer. KOL is the Asian term, which stands for key opinion leader. Robert, what's the thumbs down for? You're not a
I was
fan
just
of,
saying, I hate to see KOL led marketing efforts, and especially a battle.
You hate it. Why do you hate it?
I mean, all right, there's a few reasons why I hate it. Okay. One is
walk us through it.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I think there's a negative and slightly selling history in crypto of projects paying influencers to promote a product very either transparently or opaquely. There's a litany of historical examples of like people getting paid to post some ridiculous tweet or to tweet and then delete it or to just like chill a project. And I think it's, one of the lowest common denominator forms of marketing. I think I don't think it's a great advertising channel, frankly. I think there's
As in
better
it
ways.
doesn't work, or that it's just low integrity.
I don't think it's very high integrity. I think it.
What if it's disclosed? Because I think in this case, these are all disclosed. These are all KOLs who are putting on the Twitter badges for these respective
Agreed.
markets.
Disclosing it does elevate it up. I just think the concept has a slightly tarnished past, and I just.
All right, Tom, what's your
let's see Tom. I'm the boomer here.
No, I remember this, right? It was like, well, I feel like specifically it used to be that people would make these tweets, not disclose that they were paid, and insinuate something or post a price target about a token and get people to buy it. And so there's clearly like, it was financial advice. I think like with kind of the current KOL setup, it's more actually like kind of traditional Web 2 marketing, right? And that I'm sharing a product, you disclose that you're being paid to, endorse the product, but like, if you don't want to use the product, you don't have to. It's not like I'm encouraging you to make an investment or something like that. And I just think like and there's obviously all this sort of back and forth around what constitutes a disclosure. Do you have to like put an actual disclosure at the bottom? Can you do hashtag ad? A lot of systems have their own, or a lot of social media platforms have their own sort of like sponsored content, labeling and badging and things like that. And I think the Twitter sort of affiliate model works decently well, but then you just go around Twitter and you also see all these different accounts that have an affiliate. And it's like, wait, I know this person, they make memes, and now like, do they work for this company or they're just getting paid by this company? And so, yeah, I don't even know what constitutes as a KOL anymore, because I do see people with like 1,000 followers and they're like, I'm a Kalshi KOL. I'm like, what? Like, can I be a KOL?
I mean, yes, you could, Tom. If you raised your
very
hand,
much are a Kalshi KOL.
Kalshi or
Polymarket. In the negative valence, you are a Kalshi KOL. Yeah, so I think I agree with you, Tom, that I think there's a big difference between you are an influencer for a ticker or for a financial asset versus you're an influencer for a product, right? So for Kalshi and for Polymarket, there's nothing you can buy. It's just use the product. Come on this thing and trade. To me, I think that's definitely totally okay. Same thing. You've got influencers hawking beauty products and whatever. This kind of thing seems like, okay, this is how advertising is done in the 21st century.
So to use an analogy, if someone's like, okay, use my exchange or use that exchange, that's cool. But if they were like, buy BNB or base token, bad.
Yeah, I would say it's much dicier to be like, buy this financial asset than it is to use this product. And I think like product marketing is the oldest thing in the universe, and like having celebrities or influencers or whatever advertise products is as old as history. So I think that is totally fine, unless you're doing it again with subterfuge or it's not disclosed or whatever. Then more sus.
What about
I think
things
it's
in the middle?
Interesting discussion.
Okay, so
what's in the middle?
Shilling a ticker, bad. Shilling a platform, fine. What if it's shilling a specific market? Like, oh, bet on will so and so win this baseball game, right? Like that.
I think that's fine. I think that's totally fine. If you're telling people bet alongside me, I'm betting this way, which I can't imagine you would advertise to like bet in this market without telling them which way you're betting. Like that does seem more dicey because it sort of looks like maybe you're manipulating the market or pushing the market in a certain direction or whatever. Although with a prediction market, the idea is, I mean, I guess if you're trading in and out of it, like the whole idea with the prediction market is that it doesn't really matter.
Right. The outcome is
because it
independent
resolves
of the
to-
market, right? The
yeah,
real
it
world
resolves
thing
to the
happens or
correct
not.
outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not like it's in a way it's like more dicey for a token because it is very much the school of fish pushing the price toward something that maybe isn't tied to a fundamental outcome. Whereas a prediction market, like that seems to be the most neutral way that you could do it, is because there is just a source of truth, which is who will win the baseball game or who will
Totally.
win the election.
But in a Black Mirror, like tail wags the dog type scenario, like it is possible, and I think we've talked about this like years ago on the show, that the prediction market itself could influence the actual outcome depending on the market. So you might, just use a crazy example right now, we're like a day or two away from the Nobel Prize being awarded. It's possible if everyone's paying attention to a prediction market and the odds of like Trump winning go to like 99%, it could change the thought process of the actual decision makers and actually skew the outcome. Just like, and this is a classic example, expectations about Fed movements in rates actually does influence the Fed's decision making. If the market is saying it's going to be 50 basis points, it almost always is. And the Fed almost always follows where the market is pricing things, right? Potentially
Well,
reactionary.
that's not, to be clear, that's not been true over the last year. Over the last year, the CME has been terrible at predicting interest rate cuts, right? If you
Yes,
remember,
but you could see
last year it was
scenarios where
pricing
the
in like
market
7 rate
itself-
cuts.
You can see scenarios where the market itself does influence the outcome.
Yes, I mean, people talk about this with respect to like, I think this is kind of conspiratorial, but like election markets. Hey, if you see some candidate trading at 90%, that's maybe a little bit of subconsciously voter suppression. Like, well, I'm not going to turn out and vote because this person's definitely going to win. I think the thing that maybe we've seen like flavors of this is the market basically turning into a bounty, right? You see this already with like mentioned markets of will this person tweet this thing or will this person say this thing in the speech, and then it's like, oh well, I can get compensated for doing that. I don't think we have any kind of smoking guns of the person in the market basically taking the other side and then getting paid for it. But like I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that in the next year. You can even imagine with the the WNBA dildo thing, like someone who wants to, I don't know, commit a crime and get a buck, basically taking the other side and get paid for that.
Yes, but here's the thing about that story, right? So like the sort of the multi-causal thing of like, oh, the thing causes this, which causes the outcome to be different. What that should imply, if that's true, let's assume that's true. Right now, I think it's mostly not true because most people don't use prediction markets at all. So it's a small minority of people who are reading these as opposed to reading, Fox News and New York Times or whatever. But let's assume that we're in a world where everyone's reading the prediction market, right? And that means that if it's ever true that let's say in the next election, JD Vance is 99% to win, and you think, oh, well, that's going to lead to voter suppression and people aren't going to vote, and that means JD Vance is going to lose. What that means is that JD Vance will never hit 99%, because the moment the prediction market moves past a certain point, it can't go to 80. If it goes to 80, 80 is going to cause him to lose the market. And so it equilibrates at like 75, 77, right? It'll never go to 99, because if it goes that high, people will start selling it because they'll realize like, oh, obviously it's no longer 99 when the market says 99. So it's been overbought, right? So what that means is that if like that happens in real time, it's not like, oh, well, it's 99 and now it's going to cause this and we sit around while the market's still sitting at 99. It will immediately sell down to the point where it's never anywhere near 99. And that causal mechanism doesn't happen. Same thing, I think, for these mention markets, right? So mention markets where it's like, oh, well, will blah, blah, blah say this in a speech? Will they say the word, I don't know, transgender in a speech? These kinds of markets will just never get that big, because if they ever get big enough, they immediately start breaking.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
I agree with that. I don't think
start
we're ever going to
breaking.
get, hey, even a few $1,000s. Like for some people, maybe that's sufficiently large bounty, and who knows? These things have not a ton of eyeballs right now. You get big enough and people chuck in a few bucks. Who knows?
Totally. This is not that researched because I'm just going off of what I saw like one or two tweets of like a few weeks ago. But like I think there was some small fringe market where it was like, can this guy, some influencer, can he go camping in the Sahara Desert and survive 30 days? Like camping in the Sahara Desert, or some ridiculous market that like who knows? Right?
Lord Miles. Yeah.
Okay, yes. And some folks on Twitter, dug it up. They're like, oh, he gave up and he placed bets saying that he was going to give up, like it's manipulated, right? And I guess it was like a controllable enough outcome that supposedly some guy who was supposed to be camping in the desert shorted himself and like pulled out of the desert camping.
Yeah. So these kinds of markets, especially with this type of behavior. So I don't know how Polymarket is going to address stuff like this. Certainly at some point they're going to have to, but these kinds of markets will never get that big relative to the big objective markets. When's the government shutdown going to end? Maybe there, some senators are in a room somewhere and they have some alpha about when the shutdown's going to end. And I think the understanding with those markets is that we're mostly okay with those being insider traded, right? If the senators in the smoky room are going and betting on the market, then now the rest of the world knows when the government shutdown is going to end. And
that's
great.
futarchy. That's like actually sort of what people think is a good thing, which is like, oh, the prediction markets show you the actual odds of things occurring, including all the information that's not public. The world might be better off if like we know for sure that the shutdown's going to last like 2 days and 12 hours more.
Exactly. So I think there's like kind of two categories of markets. One where there really is no useful externality. So like, is this guy going to keep camping in the desert? Like, kind of who gives a shit other than the people betting on this market, or maybe his fans? I don't know. Maybe they care. But for things like the government shutdown, or like, are we going to war with Iran, or like when is a peace settlement going to be brokered in Gaza? Like these questions, I want insiders trading. I want whoever knows the most about this market to price it in ASAP.
Yeah, I think Matt Levine has this good kind of bit on like the SEC's sort of theory of insider trading being around theft, right? Hey, this gain should have gone to other people, and instead one individual is sort of stealing it from people, and that can kind of manifest in different ways. But to your point, this doesn't feel like there's no theft. Like no one is owed, some gain on like the accuracy of the market of the government shutdown, and so nothing's being stolen, just information being, it's sharp basically.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also just like the balance of the interests of the people in the market and the interests of everybody else outside that market. For the government shutdown, like, I don't know how much is being bet on that market, but like the interests of people outside that market are way bigger than the people in the market. Whereas for, is this guy going camping in the Sahara Desert, that the interest of the people in the market and the interest of people outside the market is just nobody outside the market cares. So I think in a way, I just have a very different intuition morally about if an insider or somebody with control over the outcome is trading, how should we feel about that as a category? I think that's how I draw that line between those two. But coming back to this KOL thing, the KOL wars. So we're seeing right now, Kalshi is really going on the offensive in hiring a lot of crypto KOLs to be Team Kalshi. So they, of course, hired John Wang, who is a big prediction market influencer. They recently brought on ICO Beast. They've also brought on a lot of sports influencers because now overwhelming majority of Kalshi's volume is sports betting. And there's a lot of talk now about, is like every KOL in crypto going to be drafted into the Polymarket Kalshi wars? Tom, given your closeness to the Kalshi team and
you're the influencer
what colorful
here,
history
Tom.
you have with them.
Yeah,
you are obviously the prediction market influencer. Where are you going?
Well, I mean, I feel like it's an open secret now that Kalshi's, imminently going to launch a crypto product to compete head to head with Polymarket, and so I think it's sort of interesting. Like I kind of comp it to, I guess, crypto exchanges where you have, these big sort of non-US exchanges now looking to enter the US. I don't think we've seen, a ton of US exchanges have a ton of success internationally. I mean, there's, Coinbase International, but who knows, maybe, prediction markets will play out kind of differently. But I also find it interesting that they also, again, see crypto as like this, very huge treasure to kind of go after. And it's like worth fighting for. And I think certainly Polymarket, you could say it's a crypto product, but by and large, I think it's actually like not a crypto product. Like it has a dedicated crypto fan base, but like, most of the people I think who know about it often don't even know that it's a crypto product under the hood, that it's on chain. Like, it's cited on the news and it's a mainstream topic. So I'll be kind of curious to see how it plays out on both sides, I guess, going both teams kind of going in the opposite direction.
So what do you guys think about the sports betting side? So now Kalshi, we can see the vast majority of their volume is sports betting. Of course, a lot of that is coming in through their Robinhood integration. So sports betting in the US, enormous market, obviously very, very profitable. Interestingly, so when the Polymarket deal was announced that they were taking strategic investment from ICE, I think DraftKings and FanDuel, like their stocks, like just lagged down like 5%. So clearly they're very afraid of competition on the sports betting side. Kalshi's regulated US business, doing a ton of volume on sports betting. And apparently now the sports betting lobby is very upset about this because what they see this as a runaround sports betting laws. And from Kalshi's perspective, it's like, well, no, this is not sports betting. This is a prediction market. We're just making predictions, different from sports betting. But if you look on Kalshi, they also have what just straightforwardly you would think of as parlays, So a parlay is, so normally you would just bet on, okay, is this guy going to win or is that guy going to win? A parlay is like almost you can think of it as like leverage, where you're betting on multiple things at the same time. So it's like, are these three teams all going to win their matches today? And if it pays out really big, but the absolute likelihood is low. So they even have parlays effectively by just like stapling together, will A, B, and C all win their games today? What do you guys think happens here on the prediction market side and with respect to sports betting? You guys have a view?
Here's my extremely macro, like 200,000 foot view of prediction markets in general and what they're good for and what they're bad for. What they're good for is what traditional futures markets and derivative markets are bad at. And like, I don't know, the exact game plan between ICE and Polymarket, but I actually see them being an incredible complement because traditional markets are good at evergreen markets. You want S&P futures every single month going for the next 100 years. It's never going to change. You always want S&P futures, right? Prediction markets are incredible at disposable markets, things that are happening and then they're done and then they go away. And they might not be around for that long, right? There's like how many baseball games, there's how many football games, there's how many boxing matches, there's how many soccer games, there's how many crazy political events, there's how many whatever. It's like all these things that are like slightly different, they're here and then they're gone forever. And you really can't anticipate all these things. You need a dynamic system of like user generated content that's like the long tail and infinitely large. And what prediction markets are great at are things that like will come and go. And you might have hundreds of thousands of these events that people want to speculate or hedge on. And I think they're phenomenal at sports, right? I think as prediction markets grow, like sports are like perfect for like disposable events that come and go and no one's going to think about again. And it's, you don't always need like, Cincinnati Reds versus, the Yankees. That's not a thing that happens every week. It's a thing that happens once or maybe once a year, right? And so prediction markets, awesome for sports. Prediction markets, honestly, it could be awesome for finance. Like things that don't need evergreen things. It's like, oh, like, what are Google's earnings going to be? Bet specifically on their earnings, not the impact of the stock price, but like the earnings themselves. Do they beat? Do they like not beat? There's a lot of things that like come and go that prediction markets are just a really good fit for, right? And so I think prediction markets are going to find a home in all of them and will complement the evergreen, like always on markets that like should never go away. There should always be liquidity. It should always like be there where it should roll. And, I think they will eat sports gambling over time. I think they will eat a lot of like financial speculation and hedging over time. And I think they'll find their way into all of these crevices because like at the end of the day, if you can build a framework for users to generate the content of markets, the users like will be able to generate everything that needs to be speculated or hedged on, even if it's only around for days. Like, oh, like, there's a ship stuck in the Suez Canal. Like that's extremely important from a macro perspective to a lot of people. And like everyone's talking about it. Like you need the market to be spun up right now. And then like it goes away in 2 days when the problem's over. And so it's hard to predict like how far this long tail goes, but I think it like covers everything in an era of like AI and automated trading and 24/7 and robotics. Like you want there to be like a somewhat infinite long tail, even if it's an infinite long tail of tiny markets. You're going to see this like extreme growth of prediction markets.
That's very well said. Well, Tarun has just risen from the grave to come.
Who could have
and haunt the
predicted
show
that
once
against
again.
all odds?
I know.
Tarun is here.
Unbelievable.
I am very sorry. My jet lag really got to me. I like slept through my alarm. So
You were sleeping? That's your.
yeah.
That's why you're late.
I think I don't know what time zone my body thinks I'm in. So sorry.
Okay.
Are you in Eastern?
All right.
I mean, I am physically in Eastern time zone right now, but my body mentally is like somewhere else.
Okay. All right. Well, just in time for you, Tarun, we're going to be moving over to Asia. So there's a BNB renaissance going on right now that may have just recently ended, a little bit unclear. But for those of you who are following at home, there was a big BNB bull run that seems to have coincided with the rise of Aster. Aster, of course, is the perp dex challenger that's doing insane amounts of volume. Right now, the number one perp dex by volume. And with the rise of Aster, seem to have also arisen this gigantic meme coin run on BNB Chain. BNB alongside it had a huge run up, hit an all-time high of 1250. So if you remember, BNB way back in the day was at like 50 cents, one of the best performing assets in history, blew through its position now in the top 5. And CZ himself was personally getting much more active on Twitter, pumping the BNB ecosystem. And so we saw Binance, BNB Chain briefly overtake Ethereum for the top chain by DEX volume, did 6 billion in 24-hour volume on chain, most of which was facilitated by PancakeSwap, a lot of which was meme coins. And then as all these crazy meme coin BNB Chain tokens were running up, all of a sudden yesterday, it all came crumbling down. I believe it started with CZ tweeting that, hey, just so you know, tweets aren't endorsements. This seems to have spooked the market for some reason. And within 12 hours, most BNB meme coins were down 90+%. Just a complete pancaking of the BNB Chain ecosystem. It's now the case that most of these meme coins dropped 90+%. The top coin was a Chinese, a coin of 4 Chinese characters, which translates to Binance Life. That token was down like 95%. And apparently 94% of traders who had bridged into BNB Chain from Solana are now down and now sitting on losses. So many of those people licking their wounds have come back. BNB Chain has retraced a bit. Volumes in BNB Chain are down quite a lot. So we had this BNB Chain super cycle that lasted about 2 days. Any thoughts, any experiences? I assume you guys were not in the BNB Chain trenches.
I don't follow
Tarun,
BNB Chain closely, but
you don't follow BNB Chain.
I should maybe.
Tarun, tell us about your experiences in the BNB Chain trenches.
I just saw a lot of group chats where everyone was like Google translating Chinese characters and text and being like, I'm an expert on this random BNB coin. And then 10 hours later, tons of memes about why did I trade based on Google Translate. So that was my entire experience with this. It was just like, obviously, because I'm reading these at weird times flying back. So I didn't have great plane internet. So I read something and it was like, everyone loves BNB. And then by the time I landed, everyone was in horror at their investment decisions.
Tom, any reflections on the BNB trenches?
I mean, I just think the whole image of it is quite funny. People bridge in from Solana to go trade a bunch of Chinese name tickers, and then 3 days later, they lose all their money and they bridge out. And I was like, I tweeted out that they in the diff log for the Binance API, they added support for Chinese characters for Perps because I think they launched Perps for some of these, and that was basically the top. And then after that, all the coins just crashed, and I don't know, it's kind of a beautiful little story when you zoom out. It's like a very fracas 72 hours.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. What is it, like never invade Poland in the winter or something like that? It's like I feel like every time people try to create this big narrative around BNB Chain memes, it always lasts 3 days and then it all comes crashing down again. And people just don't seem to learn their lesson. Because I remember, wasn't there this thing about Broccoli, CZ's dog, and there was all this stuff that happened, I think it was last year. And it all similarly seemed like a flash in the pan.
I don't know why talking about this L2 founder dog coin and chain founder dog coin narrative just makes me feel so old. I'm like, that was only a year ago. It feels like that was so many seasons of airdrops ago that I can't even count. Time just has flowed in some way I don't understand.
Well, I think that might be more of a Tarun thing, that you're just I assume that's why you're perpetually late to all of our podcasts, is because your time for you is just a river in which you're slowly wading through.
There you go. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, if there's no more reflections on the BNB micro wars.
Well, actually, didn't it happen right after Aster was delisted from DeFiLlama? I did think that was kind of funny. It was Aster delisted.
It wasn't right after, but it was also part of the storyline. So maybe also worth bringing that up. So Aster, of course, the BNB Chain affiliated perp DEX. So Aster, it was posted by 0x_NGMI, who is the founder of DeFiLlama, that Aster perps seem to have extremely tight correlations with Binance volumes, which doesn't make it Binance the exchange, not BNB Chain. Binance the exchange, its volumes and Aster's reported volumes seem to be almost 1-for-1, which nobody really understands what that could possibly mean. Is Aster claiming that their volumes are actually Binance volumes? Is Binance claiming that they're running their perps through Aster? Is it that people are hedging on Aster, the positions they enter on? But how could you possibly explain this? No response from Binance about like what exactly it's supposed to be. And in response to that, DeFiLlama just delisted Aster. Now, people say delisted. It's not an exchange. It's not like people are trading Aster on DeFiLlama. It's a data aggregator, and so it's no longer on their data aggregator. But it's the leaderboard that most people look to understand how much volume is each of these perpetual swaps exchanges doing. So they delisted Aster. And the thing is, Aster also unclear what's on chain, what's off chain, what's actually getting what's actually settled on chain. So everything right now with Aster very, very unclear, and there hasn't been a lot of disclosure as of this moment. So that happened, I think, a few days before. I think the whole BNB chain run up happened after the Aster delisting from DeFiLlama. So I don't think it was causal. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think in a way, people were like, at least the people who are farming this are like, fuck yeah, CZ's the man. Like, you can just do what you want. So there is a little bit of like, you can just do things vibe from the whole BNB chain run up.
Yeah, I do also find it like, I think one of the kind of, there was this whole sort of discussion around like, Hyperliquid being kind of a lit order book, and then that being bad with the whole James Wynn thing, and then CZ chiming in saying, oh, it should be private. And then part of the DeFiLlama delisting was like, well, we can't actually see who's making or taking the orders because it's private, so we don't know if it's washing or not. So like we're just gonna, so it's like, kind of somewhat poetic, and that like the privacy is also the thing that is maybe getting the data
maybe
removed.
A little too private. Yeah, maybe a little too private. But that being said, like clearly their TVL is very large. That's not, you can't fake TVL. It's a very, very large TVL. I think last I saw, before the delisting, it was like something like 5 billion. So the TVL got very significant. But of course, it looks very much like this thing is being farmed. And if you hear just people on Twitter talking about it, they're like, yeah, this thing is being farmed to hell. So, and the fact they're incentivizing volume, which generally most perp dexes are a little more mindful about, hey, if you incentivize volume, you're just getting a lot of wash trading. This is not really organic activity. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the other super cycle going on in crypto, which is the privacy super cycle. So it seems like privacy is now on Meta. There was some very large tweets that we mentioned in our previous show that were from Mert and Naval that seemed to have, and then later from Arthur Hayes, that seemed to have kicked off a Zcash crazy bull run. So Zcash was sitting somewhere around 30, 40 bucks, maybe just 6 months ago. It's now sitting at 170. So it has had an enormous rally over this week. Privacy coins in general have all been rallying. And there's a lot of talk from people of like, hey, it's the comeback of the cypherpunk movement. Privacy is, this eternal meta. I think the tweet from Naval was Bitcoin is insurance against fiat. Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin. There's a lot of excitement right now around privacy. Curious for you guys, how do you guys read this privacy meta? The markets have been a little bit sluggish the last couple of days. Zcash was up again, another like 20% in the last day. So in a sea of red, privacy seems to be the standout. How are you guys reading this moment?
It's always hard to say why is something popping off now. I mean, Zcash was one of the first coins I ever bought, like in 2017 or like earlier, right? Like Zcash has been around for a really long time. It's not like, their roadmap suddenly changed. It's not like there's any like fundamental, like, oh my goodness, this thing is worth like 6 times what it was.
Well, so what the Zcash people are saying is that the phase shift is two things. One, Zashi, which is the new Zcash wallet, which is much more usable than like previous Zcash wallets. Previous Zcash wallets were absolute dog shit, like extremely unusable. No consumers would possibly touch them. So Zashi is actually pretty good UX. And then Near Intense. So Near has this intense protocol that allows you to basically interact with any chain using and trade on any chain using a single wallet that's like abstracted over multiple chains. And apparently this is how a lot of people are interacting with Zec now, is actually not through Zashi, but through Near Intense. So that is the story
that feels like rear view mirror justification for the fact that a coin has gone up massively. And this is crypto, right? Like certain assets accumulate prices like incredibly rapidly. There's a crowd effect here. Like I remember like the conversation around Zcash has been going up as like, it's been running up and more people are like, oh my God, like I've gonna chase this momentum. So like this is not a market where fundamentals are the only explanations. There's just a lot of capital flows moving into assets and trying to chase whatever narrative sort of exists.
Robert doesn't believe.
I don't
Robert doesn't
believe.
Robert says his flows. Robert says his flows.
You
Tarun, you
know,
got to take
I mean,
Zcash supercycle.
I think Zcash is probably one of the reasons I ended up being full time in this industry. Is like I feel like they really pulled off something people didn't really think was true. You know, I feel like you can go to Bitcoin talk posts from 2010 to 2013 where Satoshi talks about ZK proofs but doesn't believe that's possible to ever get them into a blockchain, and then Zero Coin and Aaron Traumer and stuff kind of somehow pulled the rabbit out of the hat, and that sort of created the entire ZK ecosystem, I guess, in crypto, right? So like I think it brought like for a lot of us we have this kind of special warm place in our heart for Zcash, and I think it's also interesting because like there's a lot of people who hate Zcash because they're like, oh, it has transparent mode, so it's fake privacy, whatever. But I think like they've done a lot for the space in general. That being said, I mean
That being said,
this doesn't seem like exactly organic, right? Like the near intent stuff I could have done 6 months ago, and
okay.
Zashi, it is better UX for sure. Like I don't have to wait 7 minutes to send a S to T or T to S transaction, let alone S to S. Is that enough to justify this? No. I mean, this feels like a KOL BNB pump. Like this, and look, Zcash deserves
KOL
that.
BNB pump.
Zcash deserves that. They've created much more many assets in this space extract much more value than they provide in terms of the technology they write, in terms of the things that build upon them. And you definitely cannot say that for Zcash, right? Like tons of stuff like literally relies on a lot of design decisions they made and improvements upon it that have been made. So look, I'm hoping I'm happy for all the Zcash people still holding out.
If I can summarize, you don't believe either, but they deserve it. That's the Tarun take.
Yeah, and I will say I love the copy trades that are going on, like Railgun going up like 5,500% or whatever.
I agree. That's the best part of this narrative.
The copy trades are the funniest thing here.
Tom,
yeah,
what's your take?
I also saw people talk about Starknet and like, oh, it's like privacy. I mean, I agree. It feels people want to sort of look back and find some sort of cause post hoc.
But want to believe, like everyone does have a soft spot for Zcash, you know.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, you look at intents and it's like not that much Zcash. And it's not even like listed really on many big exchanges. Like Kraken is like one of the few big ones, maybe the only big ones that still has Zcash. But I do wonder if there's like a kind of collective subconscious kind of thing going on. Because there's also like the EF put out this privacy cluster announcement on Monday about all these new privacy initiatives that they're funding. And I'm like, okay, clearly this was in the works for a while. It's not like they scrambled to put this together a week after Zcash started pumping. And so it's just funny to me, like maybe there's like a hunger deep down in all of us for some new meta that we can go and invest into or trade, and people are like, oh, privacy, that's a good one, let's bring it back.
This is like a meta that has like philosophical justifications from like the early days of crypto, right?
Yeah, you think the hunger is for the meta,
we spent multiple years basically saying privacy is useless and meme coins are better than privacy, right? So it's like there is this like feel good element to the old people in crypto, like, and then also the fact that there are some like people who are not over 30 shilling Zcash is like the most bullish thing that for them that could ever happen, because it's like it is kind of a boomer coin, right? It's almost 10-year anniversary. I think it's next year. So it's like it is an old coin. And so like having new people who are younger and newer to crypto really shilling it is I don't know, that's hard. Dino coins, like it's hard to 10 years later find new communities. So I think it's because they have just like they're solving a problem that's about a fundamental human right, not like lol's entertainment.
So it wasn't that long ago that we were all talking about Roman Storm and the Tornado Cash case. So privacy, like if anything, it does feel like a very delayed reaction to a lot of the anger and frustration and the backlash that we were really seeing in the community just 3-4 months ago when the Trader Cash case was ongoing. I think I agree with you guys. Also, Zcash, one of the first coins that I bought. Also, everybody I know who's been an OG in the space has a soft spot for Zcash, and they did invent so much that the industry has later built upon. At the same time, I don't even know if I'd call it a Dino coin. Like when I think Dino coins, I think like IOTA or
Doge,
Dash or Doge.
No, but
Zcash
might be older than IOTA.
I think it's older than IOTA.
Totally.
I think it's older than IOTA.
I'm sure. No, it's definitely older. But I think of it like Zcash. I think of it as a cypherpunk coin, right?
Yeah,
it's
100%.
like the old guard of like the true Bitcoiners and the people who like descended from that set of values, which is really quite different in like the phylogenetic tree of crypto from a lot of the other Dino coins, right? Like when I think Dino coins, I sort of think like this existed in a previous cycle and retail woke up and like remembered like, oh yeah, I remember crypto. I'm gonna go buy some Stellar. Like that. That's what I think of when I think Dino coin.
Or
actually,
nobody was buying
minute.
Zcash back then.
Wait a minute. I oftentimes reference my my friend on this show who is like a XRP bar owner, and he sold a large stack of his XRP to buy Zcash in this rally. So
really,
so I think the interesting thing about this is this rally is about both the highbrow and the lowbrow. It's like the XRP rotators selling their XRP to buy Zcash, and then the KOL led, Naval and Mert led KOL storm. So I think it's like kind of the barbell.
Yeah, I mean that
the barbell
must be true.
Bull market.
Totally, that must be true because I've always believed fundamentally that cypherpunks don't have money. Like it's just, if you're targeting cypherpunks, like they're not going to be able to make a coin move. They're not going to buy this thing in size because they just don't have money. They have a lot of anger, but they're not the ones that are setting prices at the margin. So it does seem like all of a sudden retail's gotten activated. There's this bigger narrative that has momentum, and momentum is everything in crypto, as we all know. So TBD where this is going to land in 6 months. If you look at the chart of transaction activity on Zcash, I was just looking at this yesterday. It's basically like a sort of, it's kind of like flatlined over time. If you look over the last 6 months, it's not much. And then all of a sudden, like 4 days ago, boom, not to all-time highs, nowhere near all-time highs, but like a solid level. And then it's like elevated now. It's significantly less than Monero. Monero, of course, is the most used privacy coin. And Monero still doing more volume than Zcash in terms of transactions that are transaction count that's taking place on chain. But these rebrandings can often be really sticky. There's price levels almost are self-justifying in crypto. It's like once something moves to a certain price level, it's just like, well, I guess that's where it's supposed to be. So I can kind of see Zcash making a new home where it is. But right now, the momentum, like the volatility in Zcash is so high that really hard to know where it's going to go. So I could see this thing going to like, 300 and just blasting through stuff, because the other thing is that it's such an old coin that a lot of people have just forgotten about it. A lot of people who hold it are just like, oh, it's there. So there's not that much trading hands any given day, which just means that it's easier to move the asset than something that's, something like Doge is just so widely circulated and there's so much market cap. It's very difficult to move the price.
I would go as far as to say, as the
of
marginal new user in crypto since 2022, the probability of them knowing what Zcash was like less than 1% for like net new users. Because
yeah.
Honestly, I would argue the Mert effect of this is probably more important almost than the Naval effect, because all the kind of new Solana users from 2022 likely didn't know what Zcash is, and I think his advocacy probably brought it to the attention of the gambling part of the world more so.
So to them, it's a new coin.
Yeah, exactly.
When is he getting his Zcash affiliate badge? That's
yes,
really
KOL.
No, he's definitely clearly the chief KOL for Zcash in my mind.
I am now a Zcash KOL. I've gotten tagged in a bunch of these tweets because I did this interview with Gen Zcash, which is like their Gen Z marketing arm.
That's a good.
And now I'm getting like these Korean influencers who are tagging me of like, Haseeb is part of the Zcash. Like I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything about Zcash. I was just like, yeah, that's cool.
So, you're hosting a whole podcast about Zcash.
Yeah, we just spend
now,
like 5 minutes.
Now we are Zcash influencers. Well, but you guys are shitting on it. You guys are like, oh, I don't think it's going to survive.
I'm not shitting on it. I literally gave a fucking diatribe about how it is a philosophically important. It was a philosophically important coin.
We
Yeah,
all
yeah,
like
yeah.
Zcash.
And
We
that
all
you
love.
thought
Yeah,
it's not going to be
it's just more
sustainable.
that it's kind of this
To be
thing
fair,
that's like
I heard
been
you guys and I
disrespected for
summarized your
years.
points. All right. If you say so. Well, look, I believe. I'm a believer. You guys said you don't believe. I believe. I believe in Zcash.
Look, if 50% of the Zcash rise is from like people rotating out of meme coins, is that like a bad thing? Obviously not. It's a good rotation of that capital. Hopefully,
Yeah.
in the sense that it sets
Well,
a
now
floor.
apparently people rotating out of BNB Chain into Zcash. So, all right. One more story that we want to run through is that apparently now BlockFi has come back to life. So there's a new product launched by Galaxy, the public company today run by Mike Novogratz, called Galaxy One. So Galaxy One is being
No
run by
confusion with
it's basically a
Coinbase
retail-facing finance app. No relation to Coinbase One. So Galaxy One is going to be launched as the retail-facing finance app launched by Galaxy. Galaxy historically has been an institutional business, but this is their first, as far as I know, consumer product. Now, Galaxy One is going to offer 4% APY, FDIC insured up to $250K, 8% premium yield only for accrediteds, $1 million cap per investor. So obviously this is not sustainable. You can't just go park your corporate treasury into Galaxy One and get 8%. That is not FDIC insured. They've got a bunch of assets you can buy, deposits enabled in whatever, brokerage, zero commission trading. They got a lot of stuff, so it's like a fully fledged finance app. The interesting thing about it is that this is being run by one of their recent talent acquisitions, Zach Prince. You might remember Zach Prince because Zach Prince was the founder of BlockFi, which very famously ended in infamy with a explosion because they went bankrupt. They were very briefly rescued by FTX. Turns out they were being rescued by somebody who themselves needed to get rescued. And
It was a
not.
mess.
So no, they all fell into the ocean alongside the Titanic. So there's gotten a lot of interesting eyebrow raise of like, oh, this is kind of BlockFi-esque of 8% yield on cash. That doesn't sound like that could make money. But of course, it's a acquisition strategy to bring in customers, not uncommon. So Galaxy One, it's a different universe today. So want to be clear, we're not implying in any way that that it's going to suffer the same fate. And obviously, having a $15 billion public company behind you puts you in a very different financial position than what BlockFi was way back in the day. And I'm assuming that their loans are probably not to Three Arrows. So thoughts, Galaxy One?
Well, all I'll say is, you love to see it and you hate to see it, right? You love to see a second chance and a comeback story. It is cinema to watch Zach Prince reboot BlockFi from within Galaxy. When he joined them, I don't know what, like a year ago, I was like genuinely curious. I was like, what is he going to do at Galaxy? I was like, and I'll be honest, it was not on my bingo card. I actually did not expect the answer was going to be he's going to bring back BlockFi. I actually thought it was going to be something totally different, frankly. But I love a comeback story. I love to see second chances. I definitely hope that it ends differently than BlockFi for Galaxy's sake and for everybody's sake. I think there have been a lot of lessons learned. I mean, that was such an insane moment in time. Yes, there was a bunch of dominoes, but at the end of the day, BlockFi blew up because their largest customer is 3 Arrows Capital, who was the largest customer of all the lending desks. Everybody made a really bad decision to make massive
What was so
loans.
tragic about that story was that first it was Three Arrows, then it was FTX. So they had two borrowers who just defaulted.
But Zach got burned lending the majority of the money to 3 Arrows Capital, which was not a trustworthy borrower. There was extreme concentration risk. The whole thing went sideways and it ended terribly. It was horrible risk management, frankly, right? But you suffer a problem when there's a lot of retail and they're like pumping money in. You have to put it somewhere to earn that return. And like the biggest borrower was 3 Arrows, and they borrowed from everybody and they burned everybody, right? Because they were doing dangerous stuff with that money. It was just an inverse waterfall of risk that got riskier and riskier and riskier. Hopefully, a lot of lessons have been learned. Hopefully, there's better risk management. But at the end of the day, I haven't seen additional transparency into the product, the balance sheet, the composition of it. BlockFi was notorious for no one really knowing what was going on under the hood. I used to critique all the time CeFi lending relative to DeFi lending, DeFi having radical transparency in real time 24/7, and CeFi having absolutely no transparency. And that lack of transparency is what blew up the entire system last time. And I hope to see improvements made there. If no one has really relearned the lessons and we're all just like, well, Galaxy seems more responsible than everyone else who's come before them. I mean, Genesis seemed responsible.
You don't think being a public company is going to solve some of those issues just by default?
I hope so. I think hopefully there's enough like scar tissue there and enough lessons have been learned. But if mechanically the product looks and works the same way, and we still don't really know what's behind it, right? How do we know if it's not another giant 3 Arrows Capital, like lurking in the darkness, borrowing all the money and all is smooth until one day something blows up and it just spirals out of control again? And so I just hope that the lessons have been learned. I hope they can calibrate for that. The only true difference I've seen, and this is, I guess, risk management, I'll throw quotes and a question mark on this, is that there's a 60-day redemption period to withdraw from the product. So if you give them your money, you can't immediately demand it back. You have to wait 60 days. And in some ways, maybe that does sort of prevent, what happened in the actual death throes of BlockFi, the 11th hour when things were really collapsing. It was like, the problem is, people asked for their money back and they didn't have it. So it's possible gating the liquidity does make it a little bit more defensive, but we'll see. I wish them
Yeah,
the
I mean,
best.
if your counterparty is 3 Arrows, 60 days is not going to save you, right? Like,
Yeah.
if the loans are dead.
Yeah.
That being said, today, I mean, so I don't know this market terribly well, but today the prevailing source of Bitcoin yield, isn't it like farming? Isn't it like BTC-Fi and like Babylon, all this stuff?
There's
I don't know,
that. There's
Tarun,
also
you might know this better than I do.
there's also the Bitcoin basis, which is like the same as it's always been. It's like, you can essentially lend cash by buying Bitcoin, selling Bitcoin futures, whether through
Right.
perps or futures, and earn like 6%. So like the crypto risk-free rate is like closer to 6%. I'm sure the unsecured rate that they're lending and will lend more into is probably higher, probably like 10%, 12%, 14% or something. But like the risk-free rate in crypto is like 6% right now.
Makes sense. Tarun, how do you, obviously with the stuff you guys do as arrangers or Gauntlet and Morpho, you guys are very plugged into the Bitcoin yield market. How do you think that the yield market has changed compared to what it was like in the 3 Arrows days?
Yeah, I mean, I will say like a lot more of the lending facilities overall are on chain. Like, I don't think the centralized lending has come back to anywhere near the same size that it was. I actually think it's like funny we're talking about 3 Arrows and DCG, whatever I don't know why I'm blanking.
Genesis.
Genesis.
On the day that like TradFi is basically learning that a lot of private credit had about the same level of diligence as people did on 3 Arrows.
Oh, great story.
This,
Yeah.
this current story of like this huge loss and where $2.3 billion is unaccounted for and no one knows where it went. So anyway, you can
Great
go look up
articles
the
on
first
that
brands,
today, yes.
first brands type of stuff. So I think it's actually kind of interesting whenever you see like the same types of lessons learned again, and it always just shows up whenever there's sort of like an asset bubble of some form. But I think like people are much more comfortable using on-chain lending than they were then, even to the point of like just looking at the size, looking at the fact that the centralized exchanges aren't even offering competitive rates anymore. So I think that part is different. Although I'm sure, like, if you really want a large size fixed rate loan, you were probably going to Galaxy or some Prime anyway. You weren't. So like, I think the difference, I guess, is like Galaxy has been sort of doing this more than BlockFi ever was to some extent. So yeah, I don't totally understand the borrow side of this, but I actually imagine a non-trivial portion of that 8% is just syndicating on chain, and you can get close to that anyway. So that part is actually 8% doesn't sound so crazy. Like if they were like promising over 10 fixed, then I'm a little more dubious. But 8 actually on chain right now is pretty relatively simple to do.
But we don't know if they're doing this on chain. We don't know.
We don't. Yeah, we don't. We don't. To be fair, I'm just saying. I do think it's possible to make that product that way. I would say the thing that is a little bit funny to me about this is like, why is the product name the same as like a bunch of other things? Like a lot of fintechs have this like X1 type of thing. Like Robert made mention to Coinbase One. There's like a bunch of other things that are like these like subscription plans and fintechs. Like I just don't get the naming because honestly, it kind of confusing to me. Like
Galaxy
Galaxy
One also
One's
sounds like a phone.
Yeah, it sounds like a
Yeah.
phone or like a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really sound like a bank product. And so the name is the part that I'm just a little like, I feel
It
like you
should be
have
Galaxy Earn, Galaxy Lens.
no. I feel like
Galaxy Fi even.
a lot of people
G-Fi. It should be G-Fi.
G-Fi would be a great name, actually.
G-Fi would be good.
G-Fi,
I
excellent
feel like
name.
there's lots of memes to make there.
All right, hit up Robert if you're doing a rebrand, Galaxy.
Yeah, G-Fi.
Available
Nomination
for
for
consulting.
G-Fi. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
Tom,
I
any,
guess like the only thing I would add to this at the end is just like I just don't see the same unsecured borrowing ecosystem in crypto. Like people still have a lot of scars from that in general, in a way that I think people like.
Agreed.
Yeah, I
But
think
the
the
on-chain stuff is coming back. Maple and Wildcat, and like we are seeing a resurgence of unsecured borrowing, right? Like we are. It's
It's true.
going back.
It's
People are
true, it's
forgetting
true.
the lessons of the last time.
Yeah,
I may be more optimistic that like, hey, we actually have good, better risk management controls in place. I mean, I will also be very curious to see how this does versus Coinbase's lending product, which is all on chain, right? I think they kind of got some flack on Twitter when they announced their own lending product, or like because they, sort of led with this earn up to 10.8% or whatever, and people are like, oh, this is BlockFi over again. But it's like, no, they're just taking your USDC, they're putting it into Morpho. You're not guaranteed 10%. You're getting whatever the market rate is, but like ultimately, it's just sort of this like DeFi mullet. They're sending your money into like a contract, and it's secured. And so obviously they've seen crazy growth on the lending side, on the borrow side rather. We'll be curious to see how the consumer lending product does, but it'll be kind of a cool case study of like, hey, can you actually get something really big just using DeFi rails, or is kind of the centralized version still going to be able to win out?
Yeah. Very good. Okay, well, I think we're up on time, so we got to wrap things there. But thank you, everybody, and we will be back next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.